Ooh, that looks tasty. Welcome, folks, to the Hungry Gamers back with another Kickstarter preview, and today we are talking about Solar 175 from Kagato Ergo Meeple. Now what you're seeing here is the aftermath of a solo game that I just played, and you can actually check that solo game out by following the link down in the description. Before I go any further, please make sure you turn on your Klingon subtitles, because if there's any mistakes in the rules overview, that's where you'll find the corrections. Additionally, please do note that everything that you see here is still in the prototype phase. Now, what Solar 175 is it is a legacy-style worker placement game. And what will be happening is as you play through each game, you will unlock new mechanics and new zones that you're able to travel to. But what I'll do is give you kind of the base overview of how the game roughly works. Now, so what you're seeing here are a whole bunch of cards and tokens and chits and all of that, but everyone's going to have a player board like this right here, though obviously mine's turned sideways, and they will also have 4 starting workers. And those 4 starting workers are going to start in a bag that you're going to pull from, but eventually they're going to start out right here. Additionally, you're going to have these 4 spots here blocked off, and you'll be able to unlock them as you go through the game. Each player is going to start out and draw from their bag. Then once that's done, simultaneously all the players are going to deploy all of their workers. Now I'll turn this the right direction here so we can see a little better what's going on. And so what you have is you have all these different locations. And when you fill up the entire location, you will be able to, in the next phase, activate that ability. But so for this particular spot, we'll just assume that I do that. Those 2, which is going to activate this ability, and this one here, which will activate this ability. Then once everyone is done, in turn order, you will pick one of the things you have to activate and activate it. Now, a whole bunch of stuff is going to happen. These here and these here are going to give you a new worker of some type. This will give you an engineer, this will give you an AI, this will give you a pilot, a general worker, and a lobbyist. And what will wind up happening is those are going to wind up going, after you use them, into your city leave card. So I'll just set that right here. So if I were to take these 2, they would come here. That would get me a lobbyist who would come here. And in addition to that, I would get to remove one of these little outposts, which would then also mean that I get to draw one more worker out of the bag next turn. Well, this one here would give me a general worker. And then the general worker would come over here and then allow me to activate one of these other 3 actions, where I could either gain 1 credit, I could build a base, and the cost of the base depends on where in the universe you're trying to build, but at a minimum that'll be 1 credit and 1 ore, or I can buy an ore for 3 credits or sell an ore for 3 credits. Then there's also this action here, which would allow me to just activate that trade action that I just talked about, but I would not get a worker. This one over here would allow me to get a engineer and do this outpost action, which I could also just activate. The outpost action is going to have 2 things. Either I can get an outpost, which I would take it from the supply and just add it to my board, ready to be built, and then get 2 credits. And then this would flip over, and the next person would get 2 outposts and 1 credit. Or they could take it and they could put 2 outposts in the same zone on the board, and then that would flip, and next time 2 outposts but on different zones on the board. And so what am I talking about with zones? Well, that in the first game you have 2 zones. You have this outer zone here and the inner zone there. Now those outposts are going to matter for in-game scoring. They're going to be a bit of an area control. Whoever controls each zone is going to get points, and the number of points are going to be based on these things over here, and I'll talk about that in just a second. Now, I mentioned the bases you can put out, and as you can see, they are various spots around the board where you can put bases. When you put a base out, you will get to take your base off of here, and you'll get a bonus action underneath. Then the last thing we'll talk about is if you put your workers over here, you're going to remove them from your game. Down here, you can put a blue, a pink, or a white, here a silver, and here a black. Now, the lobbyist, or the black chits here, are going to allow you to vote. The silver is going to allow you to fund the megastructure, which is going to get you one of these megastructure tokens. I'll talk about that in a minute. And any of these others will get you a military token and is going to affect in-game scoring. Now we'll talk about that right now. Now, as you can see here, we have all these things here that were out on the board at the end of the game. Now, when you get to the end of the game, scoring is going to be based on a few things. There are some resources that if you have credits or ore left over, you'll get some points for those. But the main scoring is going to come down to the regions that you control, and each region that you control is going to be, the points are going to be determined by the number of these white workers that had been removed from the game. So in this case, each region was worth 6 points. Then your bases are going to be worth points. Bases are going to be worth a base of however many points are marked on the card for the region. So all the ones in the middle are worth 1 base point, while all the ones going around are worth 2. But then you're going to add 1 for each of these pilots, these blue tokens that are over here. So in this case, a base in Zone 1 would be worth 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, while a base in Zone 2 is going to be worth 7. Then these AI here, for each one of those, that's going to tell you how many points the mega structure tokens are worth. So in this case, each one of these is worth 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And finally, each of your military tokens that you have are going to be worth 2 points. Now, that's all fairly simple. However, I've mentioned this idea of voting. So in the game, you have a big old ballot box. And anytime you discard one of your lobbyists, you're going to be able to vote. And whichever party wins the vote at the end of the game is going to double one of the scoring figures. So if the Workers' Union Party, the star here, wins, you're going to wind up doubling the amount of points you get for each of your military tokens. If the Federalists win, you're going to double the amount of points you get for building the megastructure. And if the Brave New Dawn wins, you're going to double the amount of points that you get for your bases. And so what happens when you vote, you'll simply take your thing, a little dry erase, you'll pick who you're voting for, and drop it in the box. And at the end of the game, you'll dump it all out and see which party wins. And that's it. That's how this game is played. However, what's going to happen is each game that you play, you're going to then unlock some new pack, which is going to come with new regions. Then each game that you play, you're going to unlock a new pack. And these packs are going to come with new regions. They're going to come with new mechanics that you're going to be adding to the game. And that's going to start immediately in game 2. There's going to be things that are going to be happening with the various governments out there. There's going to actually wind up being eventually a 4th choice. There's going to be new player powers, and so on and so on and so on. Additionally, as you go through, after you get past the 4th game, you're actually going to pick what megastructure you are building. And this megastructure is going to move around game to game kind of based on the story. But also, in addition to that, as you're choosing these new megastructures that you're attempting to build, that's also going to change both where they are and what it can do. So there's a lot of variety kind of built in as you go through the game. So, what do I like about this game? The first thing that I like is the bag building and the way that worker placement works. The way you're putting them out there, and when you fill them up, you're able to then take the action, or you can kind of leave some out there for kind of to fill in future rounds. I think that does work really well, and I actually haven't played Altiplano, I haven't played Orleans or Orleans, however you're supposed to pronounce it, but I'm told that it's similar to those types of games, and whatever, don't have to reinvent the wheel sometimes. I think that really does work well. That is a very fun mechanic. Additionally, I like how the game grows as you play through. So I did a playthrough of the first game, but I have actually played through the first 5 of the different games and really experienced all the initial things that you were able to unlock. And the way the game grows is really, really satisfying. It goes from the beginning where it seems, well, a little bit simple, I thought, to where finally you get towards the end, the board gets really, really huge, and there's all these new mechanics, well, maybe not all these new mechanics, but there's several new mechanics that are being introduced. And just as the board spreads, the strategy changes. I think it really does work well. Along with that, I think for a game that it seems like there's a lot going on, it's actually pretty simple. And because of it, it has a really good flow. I like how most of the stuff you're doing is a simultaneous action. But then when you do get to where you're taking your turns, there's only a few things that you can do because you've already pre-planned that. So it does keep the game cooking along pretty well. The next thing that I really like is I love the way the voting system works. And it's such an odd thing. And I really, after reading the rules and watching how to play a couple times, it really hit me that this is a really important part of the game. It is game changing. And I think it's just really cool. And the mind games that kind of go on while you're doing that. You see people voting. The first time I played this, I saw someone voting. I started voting too because I was like worried that, oh my gosh, they're voting for something that's going to hurt me. But no, they're actually voting for what I wanted. It just threw me off my game and I wasted all these turns making these votes. And I think that is really, really cool. Along with that, the other actions that cause you to discard your workers are also really satisfying because they're going to be getting you points. Those are going to be changing the in-game scoring as well in different ways. And it's culling your worker bag. So it's this kind of useful point, but you're also changing the makeup of your bag, which is going to change up what you're drawing. And I just think that really is clever and works really, really well. The next mechanic that I really love are the two cards that you take the action, then you flip them over. And so they're constantly changing just a little bit, which is going to affect the timing. It's going to make it to where you're going to make a choice of how you put your workers out, because specifically you're like, someone's going to do this, then I'm going to be able to get the thing that I want. And I really think that's clever as well. And then the last thing I'll say that I particularly like is something, I'm not going to talk too much about it in depth because I don't want it to be a spoiler, but I will say, as you go down through the game, you're going to unlock asymmetric player powers. You're going to unlock these kind of secret objectives that you'll be unlocking that'll change each game. Heck, you're even going to unlock a way that you can have anarchy reign as opposed to one of the factions that are out there. And I think that kind of build is very, very cool. In addition to that, after you pass the fourth game, each game you're going to pick what the mega structure is that you're building. And that could unlock something else. It could make you open up another envelope. Heck, this is just a prototype, and I have this many envelopes that I haven't even opened yet. I mean, it's a ton of stuff, and I got 4 boxes of stuff I haven't even opened. So there's all these things that are going to come into the game, and it's really satisfying as it does that. I think it is really, really well done, very clever, and it does start to develop a little bit of a story as you go through. So what are my quibbles with the game? Well, the first one is, right now, there's a few issues where they're still kind of working out the balance on some of the scoring, and that has to do with how the bases work. They're kind of bouncing around with exactly how they want that to be. And I think that's going to be really important on how they nail that down. If they get that right, and I think they're close, then it's really going to make the game tense and exciting. Whereas in some of the games that I played early with some of the older variants of the rules, it kind of made bases not really as important as it seemed like they might be on the surface, but they're working on that. Along with that, the AI that I played with and that you saw in the video, if you watched that, well, one, when I played it there was actually a misprint on one of the cards, which significantly weakened the AI. But even with that, they haven't quite gotten the balance on the AI yet. It's, again, I've played a lot of Euro games with the solo bots. And there's just a lot of them out there that I think are really, really well done. I'm talking about Merchant's Cove. I'm talking about Sierra West. I'm talking about Euphoria. And this one's close. There's a couple bits of balance that just aren't quite there yet. But I've been talking with them. I know how they're working on it, so it's getting there. But I can't say it's one of the things I really like because it's not quite there yet. And I also know they're working on a more advanced AI, but I haven't seen that at all, so I can't comment on that. The last thing that I will say, and this is a little bit of a larger one, is if you are someone that has played a lot of worker placement games, a lot of Euro games, the initial game, maybe even the initial 2 games, are going to feel simple. And they are simple. I think that's the point, is you're kind of building up to it. But you're going to feel like, oh, that's all I'm doing? Wow, we're putting out these outposts out here to get the area control, but we're all just throwing them out in these 2 spots. And what's the point? And there's all our bases that we're throwing out. We're all getting the same points for all these things. And it is going to feel that way the first game. Now, if you don't play a lot of these games before, then it's going to feel good. You're going to understand what you're doing and get eased into it. And I would almost say that if you're someone that's big time into worker placement games and you played a lot of these games, maybe you jump right ahead to game 3 or even game 4 because you're going to be able to follow. You're going to be able to figure out what's going on. But that's not what the game recommends. I think once you get all those things out, then the game is really, really popping. And so it becomes a question of, do you want to just kind of jump in with that, or do you want to have that experience in that build? I think both are valid, but the way it's set up, you're going to have to go through that build, and that might mean the first few games that you play, like, yeah, I guess it's fine. Yeah, it's interesting, but I feel like I'm not doing enough. I feel like I don't have a lot of choices here. And you're going to get those choices. You just have to build up to it. And then The true last thing that I'll say is it's possible that I will learn this down the road if I get through the entire campaign of everything before I have to send it off. I keep saying campaign. This is a never-ending campaign. It's going to keep going and going and going. It's not like you're going to have to tear things up or anything like that. But I don't understand the title. I mean, it says at the beginning that there was a horrible war, and it was 175 years ago. Hence 175, and the sun. Yes, there's a sun around. We need to deal with that, but it's not evocative of what I'm doing. At least not yet. Maybe it will be. And then the last thing that I'll put out there is it is a bit of a table hog. Once you get all of it out there, I mean, it eats up a lot of space because everything's just kind of out there and filling up a lot of space. And there's a lot of tokens and all those kinds of things. So it's a big game that you're going to have out there, even if you're playing solo. So there you have it, folks. That is Solar 175. I think if you are somebody that likes your game growing, kind of a legacy, it is a legacy game, but not pandemic style. If you like your game kind of growing, you're going to add new things in, then I think this one does it really well. I think if you are somebody that has a dedicated group of people that you're going to be able to come back to this many times over and over, you're going to be able to experience this and grow it together over a long period of time, then it's definitely one that you should check out, especially if you like that bag building, kind of the altiplano style worker placement, then I think you really will enjoy this one, especially as you get a little bit deeper in. And I also will say to the solo players out there, keep an eye on how the AI develops, because like I said, it's close, and I have played 4 more games of this since I was done and I was able to, record my thoughts and all that, and it is fun as you're opening new things. And now I'm going to play a little more. As I said, I'm going to start to be able to get more and more of the options that I'm getting to pick. And as I have said now multiple times, the AI is close. It's not quite there. However, it's going to be a year before this thing gets to your table, so they'll have time to work that out. So there you have it, folks. That is Solar 175. As always, if you found this video useful, please like, subscribe, and share. If I made any mistakes in the rules overview, give me a comment with a timestamp. I'll get that into the Klingon subtitles. As always, thank you so much for watching. Have a wonderful, wonderful day.